I'm King Link, and I want to wish you all a very happy new year, which means it's time for the Humble Choice January 2024 review. With it being a new year, it means that Humble has a chance to start their year off with a bang, and I think this is going to be an interesting bundle. There's going to be a lot of strong opinions on this one, and it's going to revolve mostly around the titles. As usual, I played all of these titles for an hour, and once again I was able to do an 8-hour stream. No, I didn't spend an hour staring at the Doctor Strange model. I probably should have compared to a couple of these titles though. But let's get started with the game already on screen.
You kissed the mother with that mouth?
Marvel's Midnight Suns, XCOM with cards and superheroes. Marvel Midnight Suns sounds like it was going to be yet another typical Marvel game, but all of that changes when Firaxis was named as the developer. This is the company that produces the excellent XCOM games, and if you immediately think it's XCOM and Marvel, yeah, it is, for the good and bad. The good thing is these heroes look like the comic book versions of the characters and tend to talk like it too. There's good voice acting and a high-stakes story right from the beginning. Combat is a tactical game combined with cards for actions. Players control 3 characters and can move each of them as individuals, but there's a lot of depth about where to move your characters and which attacks to use. On the other hand, there is a player self-insert that doesn't fit the world called the Hunter. He or she just really looks out of place. The card combat and the tactical XCOM style will not appeal to everyone, of course. Also, the combat is great and the story is good, but the side characters and the romance stuff are rough. Oh, and there is DLC in the Season Pass, which does have 4 more characters, including Deadpool. I previously owned this game, but I don't think any of that is given away for free in here. Pick this up if you like XCOM and want to play that with superheroes. This can also work if you're a fan of card games but want something much more tactical. But overall, I find this to be a pretty surprisingly good game. But that is because it feels like a game that was handcrafted for someone like me. Still, I enjoyed myself and I'm glad more people will get a chance to check this out. Two-Point Campus, building a clown college. No, literally. Two-Point Campus is the sequel to Two-Point Hospital, and once again you can create the facility of your dreams, or at least the one that will satisfy the conditions for earning the progression stars. Each of the 12 campuses have different rules, and a few have unique situations. Early campuses tend to have a specific course load that you're going to need to pursue, but there's still a lot of freedom given to the player, and the game is mostly about waiting for either money or for the school year to progress. The downside is that as well. There's a lot of waiting, and you have to wait an entire school year to make those big, most important changes to the curriculum. At the beginning of the year, you decide which courses to offer, and until the beginning of the following year, you're locked into those courses. In addition, money comes from tuition for classes, of which the class size is a bit limited, so there are limitations on the income you can earn as well. Finally, this is a management game. If that genre doesn't appeal to you, well, this almost certainly won't either. Pick this up if you're a fan of Theme Hospital, Two-Point Hospital, Planet Coaster, Planet Zoo, Jurassic Park, or really anything where you build out attractions and then wait for NPCs to use them. I enjoyed this game and I'm looking forward to whatever Two-Point does next, but I'm also a realist and I know this won't appeal to everyone. Aragami 2. What did they do to you, Aragami? Aragami 2 took the original stealth game and added in multiplayer, as well as redesigned combat that is similar to Souls-like or a Batman Arkham Knight with a focus on parries and dodges. The levels are much more open and there are even new guards to the game. The story revolves around you being killed off and being inducted into a secret shadowy society on the way to get your revenge. The problem is, none of this really works. The move to multiplayer in a stealth game is dangerous, but I believe the change to multiplayer forced the change in combat, but instead of a dangerous and interesting stealth game, Aragami 2 really feels bland. The open world areas take away a big part of what made the original title stand out. And that's what I thought at launch on Game Pass, but the good news is that there's now a classic mode and it does feel better with a heavy focus on stealth, though it doesn't fully fix the problem, and ultimately it still feels like this is a game that was forced to change for the worse due to the multiplayer mode, but at least the studio heard the feedback and tried to make improvements. Pick this up if you think the original Aragami needed multiplayer so you can finally play with someone else, but in all honesty, I think I would go back and play the original game first, or play almost any other stealth game than this, as it really doesn't feel as good as that original title. OTXO, a mad shootout of black and white and red all over. OTXO, and I'm trying to go by how the developer pronounces it. Maybe I'm a bit off, but OTXO takes the fast-paced combat of Hotline Miami, gives the enemy bigger guns and larger areas, and then creates a roguelite where players are forced to travel through 40 rooms of a mansion to save someone close to them. There's not a lot to the plot or the story here, but there is a ton of action and combat, which is the driving force of OTXO. I don't like this title, but I'm also going to say I think that's because it's just a fast and twitchy shooter. The combat seems over the top, but the entire time I just really wanted a second to make each decision. There's a focus mode that does that, but I feel I needed more than that. Mostly I found myself flailing around against the enemies, and the only way I was able to get any success was to line up shots to kill multiple enemies as I kicked doors open, and maybe that's the way it's intended, but it never really felt natural to me. Pick this up if you love Hotline Miami and wanted more guns, faster gameplay, and a roguelite rather than a story-based game. I'll be honest though, I'm probably too old for this game and my reaction times have dried up, but since I was never really as enamored with Hotline Miami's gameplay, I'm not as surprised that I didn't enjoy this one either. Your mileage will vary though. Roguebook. Slay the Spire while uncovering a map. Card-based games have kind of been stuck on the Slay the Spire formula for the longest time, and Roguebook's battle combat is exactly what you've seen before. Blocks and various attacks as you build a deck and try to beat your way through normal enemies, elites, and bosses. But in Roguebook, there's also a lot more map exploration, allowing players to make better choices than following a predetermined path, as well as a progression system that unlocks new benefits to the player. The downside is this game feels a bit brutal in the first few playthroughs. Part of the process is learning what skills and cards to reach for, but the progression system feels similar to Hades, where you're going to have to die quite often to start making progress, and in Roguebook, those deaths happen earlier, at least they did for me. Pick this up if you aren't burned out on deck builders. There's a fresh map system here that's worth checking out, but this is still yet another deck builder at the end of the day. The game also can take a second character as your support, so players will mix and match their characters as they play through the game, and that can keep it interesting.
Seen an owl this close before. So, what omen do you portend, huh?
The Red Lantern. Exploring Alaska with doggos. If you like dogs, the Red Lantern may be the game for you. The beginning of the game has the player meet your character's dog, Chomper, and from there you have to choose 4 more dogs to fill out your sled team from the 9 or so stops that the player is going to make on the way to the sled. Then the game officially begins with your character trying to get to the cabin with the Red Lantern. This is a roguelite with the main resource being your dog's hunger and your own. The dog's hunger goes down as you ride on, and your hunger decreases while you explore. The problem with the game is it's more frustrating than interesting. You go through various scenarios, but eventually you or your dogs will starve, and the game is quite hard at first, but there are special actions that will be recorded in a journal, and that gives you more supplies at the beginning, but with the initial supplies it may be impossible to finish this game. That sounds like a normal roguelite, of course, but the biggest problem is on the second playthrough, about half of the events were repeats from the original playthrough, and while this gave me a chance to try to fill in more of my journal, playing a third time would mean I've already found the most optimal choices, and now it's just repeating them because there's not really a lot of depth in each of these situations. Pick this up if you want a game with dogs and sleds in Alaska, and you can even pet the dogs, but I will caution people that the dogs in the games can get injured, though there is a really big option in the menu to make it so that the dogs will always live, thank God for that. Other than that though, this is a really short game from what I hear, and on my second attempt I was so close to finishing it. Interesting concept, but it really needs a lot more content. Hell Pie. Hell no. Hell Pie has you playing the demon of bad taste, and Satan calls you randomly and tells you to go tell the chef that he wants his pie. That act somehow has you roped into helping to get his ingredients for the pie, which also involves you picking up a cherub and platforming through various levels. The game tries to be humorous while giving players large levels to explore and search out various items that act as a goal for the player. But this humor is so bad. You've already seen a demon's butt, but that's hardly the worst. There are so many cringe-worthy and depressing jokes. This game isn't funny if you're older than a teenager, and probably not even funny for them either. Yet, it's the type of humor constantly on display. The levels too aren't that exciting, and even when they are, it's just crass humor at best. Pick this up if you want a weaker version of A Hat in Time or Conker's Bad Fur Day, but let me also say I've heard people comparing both of those to this game, and honestly, I'm a bit offended. This is so much weaker that it shouldn't be in the same sentence as those titles. I know, I just did that myself. The gameplay isn't awful, but the writing and the level design makes it hard to accept. All I could think of is how Demon Turf had a similar theme with a focus on hell, but better gameplay and writing.
Listen, I wanted to talk to you about what happened to Dad. It doesn't make
Twin
sense.
Mirror. another unique story from Don't Nod. Don't Nod is a company best known for Life is Strange and Life is Strange 2, but also Remember Me, Vampire, and Tell Me Why. Twin Mirror fits in with Life is Strange and Tell Me Why, introducing players to Sam, an investigative journalist who returns to his town due to his best friend dying, though there is a clear estrangement. But Twin Mirrors is like most Don't Nod games, where it sets up a compelling story and interesting characters early on, as well as hinting at larger and deeper truths. In the first hour, all I could think about is how I want to know more and unravel some of the larger stories here, and also I'll say that about an hour in, there's a huge moment which opens up a ton of new questions and really gets the game going. On the other hand, this is a narrative adventure, aka a choices matter game as Telltale used to make, and I've seen enough of these to tell you that your choices won't truly matter. It might change the path or the journey, but there's always going to be one or two possible endings in the final chapter, and that isn't a bad thing, considering when choices do matter and are spread out over the entire game, that means you have to have a 6-hour replay to see a slightly different scene. Also, some of the targeting on this game was a bit frustrating. Hopefully those were only issues early on in the game. And finally, the Mind Palace idea sounds great, but there was a rather weak running down a corridor challenge near the end of the game, and that was quite bad. Pick this up if you like Don't Nod's previous work. As I said, their character development and how they build mysteries is a big selling point here, and I'm curious how it pays off, but I also get why some people aren't a huge fan of this genre, and that's okay too. And that's just what we have this month, 8 titles, but before we get into my opinion, let's check is there any deal, and yeah, of course there is. And I pulled these values during the Steam Winter Sale, that's just when this came out, but even so, Marvel's Midnight Sun has never been lower than $17, Aragami 2 is currently hovering at $12, and 3 more titles have been at $8 or higher at their lowest. As for the rebundles, the Red Lantern was just in Yogcast's Jingle Jam last month, but Hellpie and Twin Mirrors were previously in Humble Bundles bundles, and come on Humble, that means these are repacks, and that's not great for Humble Choice. Give us fresh games, at least fresh games to your bundles. But I think the question this month is more about the genres. This is a tactical, management, roguelite, or narrative month. These aren't going to be the biggest genres, but if any of those are your favorites, there's probably something good for you here. Again, if you're someone holding out for that big $60 titles, Midnight Sun is one, but like always, it's going to be about what you want to play. With that said, let's take a look at the tier list, and this month we have our old trusty 4 tiers. Games worth the whole bundle price, serious contenders for the price, average titles, and misses. As always, I remind you this is about the recommendations based on enjoyment or replayability, not simply value. And I thought quite a bit about this, but I don't think anything can technically be a miss this month. It was close though. The game closest to the border is Hellpie. At the bottom of average tier, this one just wasn't for me, but also I don't think it's really a good enough game for anyone else. The collectathon genre isn't the strongest as it's been, but you can always go back and play those older games and they're going to be a lot better than this. Following that is the Red Lantern. I want to love this game. Like I said, if you want to hang out with dogs, this can work, but honestly I've seen a large part of this game already and I don't really want to replay it to try to min-max the scenes the best I had. Good concept, but needs a lot more content and maybe a fewer monologues from the main characters. Then we have Aragami 2. Now the one thing that's saving this game in my mind is classic mode and the fact that some people will enjoy the combat, but not me, and as a stealth game this one is still pretty disappointing. Like I said, play the original instead of this. And then we have OTXO. Yeah, unlike the rest of the average games, I would recommend this, but I don't know how much people would want this because it all hinges on fast-paced twitch shooting. It has an audience, and I understand, I just don't like it at all, and I would have stopped playing it long before my hour was up. Grandpa Gamer moment.
Back in my day, we got to the middle of the list and I showed you how it looks so far, which is what I'm gonna do today too.
Alright, enough silly voices, but that's how we look so far. A lot of average titles, but the rest are split over the next 2 tiers, so let's keep going. The bottom of the strong contenders tier is Roguebook. This one is pretty hard to start, but the unlockables give me hope that each run can be a little bit easier, or maybe I'm starting to understand more of the game as I go along, as I'm making a little more progress each time. Either way, it's worth a look if you like the genre. And the top of the strong contenders is Twin Mirror. I have hope for this title, and the reason it's the top is I'm considering playing more of this just to see how the story turns out. A good character is a good character no matter the genre. With that, we have the 2 headliners left, so we can either just look at the tier list or we can get on with it. Let's take a look! Okay, let's get on with it. At the bottom of the full bundle tier, it's 2 Point Campus. I love what 2 Point has done, and 2 Point Campus is a fun and interesting game to me. I understand why people won't like it, but if you have any interest in this genre or game, it's easily worth the full bundle price of Humble Choice. And that leaves only one game, and as much as I enjoyed others, it's Marvel's Midnight Sun. Yes, I don't like being the main character, however, I'm hanging out with some of my favorite superheroes and Iron Man 2. There's good gameplay, and the main story does seem interesting. Fighting an even more powerful Venom at the beginning of this game was a great start. And this is how the final tier list looks after all that. I'm pretty happy with the top of this list, but I do notice that half of the choice was an average tier, and I hope that's not a sign of things to come. Now, I don't have an alternative bundle like usual, but allow me to do a little housekeeping here. At this time of the year, I try to do a best of the previous year, and I think I'm going to be skipping that this year, but I'll just name the best humble choice game. There's one title. I would call it not one of the best games of the year, but maybe one of the best of all time, and many critics seem to agree with that. It's Disco Elysium. That, along with The Month, is easily my favorite. No, there's no scientific method here, it's just a damn great headliner. That's all it took to win my head-to-head comparisons. In addition, allow me to talk about the best game I played last year, and there are only a couple that really reached the top, but Neon White and Hi-Fi Rush are the two that come to mind that definitely need to be checked out by more people. Hi-Fi Rush was robbed in the best soundtrack on numerous top lists just now, and Neon White came out in 2022, so yeah, that's last year's problem, but I think it did a little bit better. Finally, I did mention last year I'm donating all the channel's revenues to the San Diego Wildlife Foundation. I've done that and doubled the revenue to save some animals. It's not a lot, but it's everything the channel earned, and I'm paying out of my own pocket to get the thumbnails made, so yeah, I'm really not good at running this channel for profit. Oh well. Thank you for watching, thank you for supporting, and like I said at the beginning, please have a happy 2024 or whatever year you watch this in. I will be trying out a couple more videos this month. If you want to see what's going on or what I'm working on, consider subscribing and ringing that bell. I'll put up an old video on Dolphin, but the new stuff is right around the corner and I'm excited to talk about more. See you next time.